In the vast, scorching expanse of a seemingly endless desert lived a flock of crows. Life was a constant struggle against the relentless sun and the ever-present thirst. Among them was a young crow named Kale, known not for his strength, but for his sharp mind and observant eyes. Unlike the others who desperately chased distant, shimmering illusions of water, Kale conserved his energy, watching and learning. One day, the flock's elder, a wise but weary crow named Corvus, gathered everyone. His voice was raspy from the dry air. "The great drought is upon us," he croaked. "Our usual water holes have vanished. We must find a new source, or we will perish." A murmur of fear rippled through the flock. Many had already been lost, chasing mirages that melted away upon approach. Kale stepped forward. "I believe the answer isn't in chasing what we see in the distance," he said, his voice clear and steady. "It's in understanding the desert itself." The other crows scoffed. What was there to understand besides sand and heat? But Corvus silenced them with a look. He saw a spark in Kale's eyes that reminded him of his own youth. "Speak, Kale. What have you seen?" Kale explained his observations. He noticed that certain types of hardy, deep-rooted plants always grew in clusters, and that in the cool of the early morning, tiny insects would gather around the base of specific rock formations. "These are not random," Kale insisted. "These are signs. Signs of moisture deep beneath the surface, where the sun cannot reach." His theory was met with skepticism. Insects and plants? What do they know of water? Cawed a brawny crow named Orin, who prided himself on flying the farthest and fastest. "The only way to find water is to fly towards it. I saw a huge lake just this morning over the western dunes." He flapped his wings, ready to lead another doomed expedition. But Corvus held up a wing. "We have chased Borin's lakes of air for weeks, and what has it brought us but exhaustion and loss? Kale's path is one of thought, not just flight. We will test his theory." Kale, lead the way. With a heavy heart, but a determined spirit, Kale led a small group, including Corvus and a few other hopefuls, away from the shimmering illusions on the horizon. He guided them not towards a glistening mirage, but to a cluster of pale green shrubs huddled at the base of a towering rock spire. The air here felt subtly different, a tiny bit cooler, a fraction more humid. "Now we wait," Kale said, perching on a ledge. Borin and his followers laughed from a distance, then took to the sky, chasing the phantom lake in the west. As the sun began to set, Kale's group watched the ground. Just as Kale had predicted, small dark beetles began to emerge from tiny cracks in the earth, crawling towards the base of the rocks. "Look," Kale whispered, pointing with his beak. "They are seeking moisture that condenses on the cool stone overnight." He then flew down to a patch of sand that seemed slightly darker than the rest. He began to dig, his beak and claws working tirelessly. The other crows, inspired by his conviction, joined in. They dug and dug, their hope fueling their strength. The sand grew cooler, then damp, and then a small muddy puddle began to form at the bottom of the hole. It wasn't a vast lake, but it was real. It was water. The crows drank, their parched throats finding relief for the first time in days. It was the sweetest water they had ever tasted. As they were savoring their discovery, a shadow fell over them. It was Borin, returned alone, his feathers drooping, his body weak. The lake. It was just sand, he gasped, collapsing near the hole. The others, they couldn't make it back. Kale and the others shared their water with the defeated crow. There were no "I told you so's," only the quiet understanding of survival. In that moment, Orin understood the difference between sight and vision. He had seen a mirage, but Kale had envisioned a solution. News of Kale's success spread. He taught the rest of the flock how to read the signs of the desert, the plants, the insects, the cool morning air against the rocks. They learned that true wisdom wasn't about chasing fantasies, but about observing reality, understanding the interconnectedness of life, and applying knowledge with patience. They began to find small pockets of water all over the desert, not by exhausting themselves in futile flights, but by using their minds. They learned to work together, digging in shifts, creating a network of small, life-sustaining wells. The desert was still a harsh place, but it was no longer a death sentence. It had become a home they could navigate with wisdom and cooperation. Kale, the young crow who dared to look down when everyone else was looking far away, became their leader. Not by force, but by respect. He proved that the greatest strength isn't in the wings, but in the mind. And the most life-giving oasis isn't always the one you can see, but the one you have the wisdom to uncover. They learned that a mirage can fool the eyes, but it can never fool a mind that seeks the truth. This story reminds us that sometimes the solutions to our biggest problems aren't in chasing distant, glittering promises. They're often hidden right beneath our feet, waiting for us to observe, to think, and to have the courage to dig for a deeper truth. It teaches us the power of observation and the wisdom of looking for subtle signs instead of grand illusions. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story and the lesson it holds, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next journey into wisdom. See you next time.